welcome everybody to today's event, Move What You Mean, the power of embodying in our coaching practice. And today's event is, I've actually completely lost track now of where we are in the Somatic Shift series. We've done a fair few now at this point, and it's been a real joy. We've done one a month every month this year, almost every month. And so if you are curious, check out our YouTube channel for more of these events, and you'll see the recordings of them there. They've all been uploaded. Can I just see, actually, by a show of hands, now we've got a few more people in the room, who here is already a coach? Yeah, just by a show of hands, who's already a coach? Who here is kind of new to coaching or new to this sort of work? Fantastic, great, cool, lovely. You are very welcome. And curious, like maybe we could just take a few shares here just before we get into it. Like, what inspired you to register for this particular event today? Anybody like to share on that at all? Feel free to pop in the chat, or you can unmute. Yeah, Joe, I see you. Oh, Gary, yep. We'll come to Joe first, and then we'll go to Gary. Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't so much this event, but it was just I'm thinking of doing. I'm very interested in your training, but I just wanted to have some experience of some of the sessions to get a stronger sense of it. I've already had a chat with someone called Caro.
Yeah, Caro.
Yeah, Caro, that's it. It was very, very helpful. So I just wanted, I've watched a couple on, not live, one that you did on constellations and planning, which I found fascinating. So yeah, that's really, I just wanted to know more about what you do, really. Yeah.
Fab, Joe. Thank you very much for sharing. Good to have you here. And Gary, we'll come to you, and then we'll get started.
Well, as I said, I trained with CTI, went right through with certification earlier this year. I'm just transitioning as well. So I've been a teacher for decades, and I've just retired from teaching, but over the last 2 years I've been coaching at the same time. So now moving over to coaching, and somatics over the last 2 years came up a lot. Somatic school came up a lot. It's a different path to what I was on, but I wanted to finish that path first. I'm very interested because within teaching, we didn't call it somatics, but definitely somatics was part. I worked in a particular area of South London, and I ran the enrichment program for many years, and we found that movement and expression through movement was often a way for students that were not attaching themselves to feelings, and they couldn't vocalize it. And we found that actually that was a thing. Often even doing a craft, moving, doing their hands, they would actually start to open up. They would start to be able to, it would manifest itself that way. And so I've been very interested in that. And I kind of wanted to get the CTI about part and certification done, and now delve into this a bit more because I now have more time as well.
Yeah, great. Fantastic, Gary. Well, hopefully today will somewhat illuminate or further illuminate some of the ways that we can understand the learning process in general, the body's role in that. Let's put it that way. The body's role in and how we learn as human beings. And having, I mentioned earlier, but I'm having trained at CTI as a co-active coach 11 years ago now. I think that you have a very good foundation for what's for this kind of work. You know, it's a nice kind of through line from that to into this. So that's wonderful. Good to have you here. Thanks, Gary. And Jude, welcome. Not a trained coach, great, but working community support work with women or trauma experience, great, and more training in embodiments and somatics. Also trained in IFS, lovely, good stuff. Good to have you with us. Thank you very much for sharing. So let's get into it then, shall we? So I'll just check if you can all see the slides. I'm sure it'll pop up. Yep, there you go. Good, lovely. So I suppose a couple of things to mention then. You know, here at the Somatic School, I'm Nathan Blair, I'm the founder of the Somatic School, and here we are really working with the distributed intelligence of the body mind. You might think about, if you think about somatic therapies as largely primarily working with trauma, you might think about somatic coaching, or at least how we train somatic coaching here at the Somatic School, being nervous system conscious, nervous system aware, trauma sensitive ways of working, and primarily about embodied sense making. So where coaching is a process of inquiry, here at the Somatic School, we train coaches to effectively facilitate process of inquiry that includes the intelligence beyond the intellect, our distributed intelligence throughout our entire organism, and to really access other ways of knowing, which in today's world, where knowledge especially is no longer, is sort of so readily available to us, I've heard somebody recently actually describe this as we're moving from the knowledge economy to the wisdom economy. I thought that was interesting. And I believe that, if we talk about the wisdom of the body, I might put it in a slightly different way, which is to say that the body helps us to access wisdom, wise action, lock and key solutions to what's been irking us, and make decisions that feel really truly aligned, and true to who we are, and what's right for us uniquely, each of you respectively. So that's sort of what we're working with at the Somatic School, and we do that on our flagship program called the Accredited Diploma Embodying Coaching. Kata here is, as mentioned earlier, was one of the first to do that back at almost 7 years ago now. So that's so wonderful to have that, the nostalgia of that, Kata. So beautiful. I remember we were in London, and now our training is entirely online, and yet we host training that feels distinctly human. Even though we're in a kind of on an online setting, this is a very important dimension to this, and I hope today you'll have a sense of how that might be possible, because through experience you'll see that this is not your usual screen time. No, not at all. So let's explore that together, shall we? A few other things just to mention is that we were actually back when Kata did the training. In fact, back when you did the training, Kata, we were the UK's first ICF accredited somatic coach training. We are now the world's first somatic coach training to receive the ICF's level 2 accreditation, when that was the new level 2 accreditation, when that was launched a couple of years ago. And we actually got an award, we had an honorable mention for the Distinguished Coach Education Award at the ICF Impact Awards last year. So very proud of that. We've now trained over 600 body-oriented coaches, and we are delighted to welcome you to our community of Somanauts. So today's event is all about, we said, move what you mean. What an interesting title. What exactly are we looking at? So we're going to be exploring one of the skills from our training called Embodying. This is a way to bring the invisible into form through movement and gesture, posture, and form. We'll be exploring this today. It's a particular skill. So learning how to invite clients to express experience through the body, not just the words, exploring how mirroring and contrast deepen awareness and open new possibilities. You're going to have first-hand experience. I hope you've come ready to interact and engage in an experiential learning process. But you're going to experience how motion can give rise to meaning in coaching. And then finally, practice co-creating simple somatic practices that support integration and change. So that's where we're going today. Enjoy the ride. Before we get into it, let me see here. I think for time, I'll share a little bit more. Actually, before I do, I'll just quickly pull this down for a second and just check in with you. Who here who's already to a degree bringing the body into your thinking process? That might sound an interesting way to put it, but yeah. Joe, I see your hand up there. Yeah, Kata as well. Okay, cool. And Gary as well. So great. There may be ways in which you're doing that. Today, I want us to just entertain the possibility that we actually that thinking is not a skull-bound process, for want of a better word. Okay, so this is a great, Rico, as much as you can. Wonderful. And you will learn some new ways to do this today. So okay, cool. So that's the sort of the territory that we're entertaining. As a starter for 10, anyone here heard of Amy Cuddy by a show of hands? Did a TED talk some years back about what she called power poses. Okay, cool. That's what this slide references, this idea of power poses. So in Amy Cuddy's research, which has since been somewhat disputed around certain claims, which I'll explain in a moment, but it did begin to shine a light, certainly in the mainstream, and particularly in kind of more corporate environments, began to pick up on this idea that postural feedback is another name for these power poses. Postural feedback affects our state, our mood, our state of mind. So in other words, our psychology could be influenced by simply standing in a particular way. So the power poses that Amy Cuddy spoke about were ones such as the one in this photo here: hands on the hip, chest up, head high, that sort of thing. She did claim, and this has since been criticized, as she sort of overstated claims linking these poses to specific hormonal changes. It's actually, the more recent science would suggest that it's actually much more subjective and contextual than simply stand like this and your hormones will change like this. It's always tempting for us to oversimplify these things. And much like for many years, we've said that stress is the product of the amygdala hijack. And actually, that's one small brain region. And actually, stress is a networked event throughout our entire organism that involves multiple brain regions, the autonomic nervous system, so on and so forth, a number of hormones, etc. But this is interesting because this did kind of, I think it did lay some sort of till the soil for what is beginning to be understood as how one of the ways that movement and posture can change how we think, feel, act. So the science maybe evolved from pose like a superhero to change your hormones to more maybe your posture participates in your state, shaping how you feel and think and connect. Now, I wish I'd remembered this prior to the event. I would have included it in the slides, but there's a lovely little Snoopy comic strip where Snoopy is talking, Charlie Brown is talking to Snoopy and saying, if you want to be sad, it was something like, I can't remember. It's something like, if you want to be miserable, you must stand like this. And he's got his head slunched over, like he's like, you won't get anywhere trying to be miserable if you stand differently or something like that. And I can't remember exactly what the comic strip said, but it was this fascinating idea that standing like that in itself can actually change how we feel. Okay, so there's perhaps the one we're actually going to be exploring this a slightly different way, because Amy Cuddy's work and much like there are many other kind of approaches to somatic coaching that will involve this idea of getting your body into certain positions and changing your state. That's largely a very sort of top-down approach there. If you imagine, we're sort of saying, I want to think or feel a certain way, so I'm going to do this with my body. It's a kind of like a top-down sort of approach to somatics. So what I want to explore with us actually is a little bit more of a kind of a bottom-up approach, because the way that we explore working with posture, movement, shape, form as body-oriented coaches is largely bottom-up. So let's have a little experience right off the bat. I'd love to invite you here, if I may, to only if you want to engage. Of course, this is merely invitation, so do what only feels right for you. But try doing a little bit like Charlie Brown says. I want to just kind of show you something, give you an experience of something. So if you feel comfortable too, and only if you feel comfortable, I'd like to invite you just to kind of slouch in your chair, hunch over, as if you're feeling a little blue, so you're not feeling, as if you're not feeling great. And imagine you might even bring to mind, what's it like to sit or stand when you're feeling really disheartened, really deflated, really, really a little bit, down, and only get a flavor of this for now. Now, I'd like to invite you to stay in this position for a moment with that experience and just really feeling the body. Now try with mustering as much enthusiasm as possible, but remaining in that exact position. I want you to say, I'm having a fantastic day, out loud. As enthusiastic as possible. I see some laughter. I'd love to invite you to unmute. Maybe some of you can share. What was your experience doing that little experiment there? Oh, thanks so much, Kata shares the cartoon. That's perfect. But yeah, what was your experience there? Gary, go for
it. It's quite difficult to be as enthusiastic when you feel constricted. I mean, it just makes you want to throw. I'm a runner as well, so I would never start and throw yourself into a run in that position. You're not really going taking on the Superman kind of image, but you are opening the lungs. You're looking outward. That's the thing, and it's very difficult if you're in that position.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Gary. Joe, what was your experience? I saw you on mute, I think.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say there was a real sense of cognitive dissonance because there was this kind of, you don't go like this when you're happy, you're open, and here you're all closed down and constricted. And so when I was saying, I was laughing at myself because I couldn't muster up that even though I'm feeling fine, I couldn't muster it up because I was, yeah. So it's quite interesting, isn't it?
Right. Fascinating. Exactly. So exactly much like Gary had shared there, Joe, same for you, kind of can't quite muster up the enthusiasm to say it. This is difficult. It's almost, we're almost constrained in our ability actually to express enthusiasm as a result of our body position. Extraordinary. So this is a demonstration of a kind of bottom-up interaction. Now, ultimately, in reality, it's both bottom-up, top-down all the time. These are called subcortical loops. These sort of feedback loops, these neurological feedback loops that run, that if you want to learn more about this, you could look at the science of embodied cognition. For this, Guy Claxton makes it very accessible for the very accessible literature on embodied cognition. Guy Claxton, and yeah, this is one of the explanations for why we have that experience from a scientific perspective. But it also demonstrates just the power of the shape, our posture, and how it's affecting our psychology, our mood, our affect, our ability to express ourselves, how authentic we may feel, etc. So this is the cartoon that we mentioned. Kata, thank you so much for finding it. This is my depressed stance, says Charlie Brown. When you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you could do is straighten up and hold your head high, because then you'll start to feel better. If you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you've got to stand like this. So perfect. Such a perfect cartoon for when we're talking about embodied cognition. It's just it's such it's ahead of its time there as well in many ways. There's a sort of a funny irony to something relatable about that for people, but there's good science as to why that is the case. And that's the kind of the waters we're swimming in right now. So what does that mean to work bottom up? I love this quote by Carl Jung. Carl Jung says this: sometimes I know so little about what the unconscious demands that I simply leave it to my hands so that afterwards I could think about what I have shaped. Curious little quote from Carl Jung there. Love it. Or Carl Jung, what am I? Okay, so Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, explains that sometimes if he wants to understand the longings, the needs, the wants, the troubles, the stuckness, the etc. of his unconscious, essentially, we have what we're consciously aware of and what we're unconsciously aware of, and the body often reveals what's happening for us unconsciously. And that doesn't have to just include trauma, right? So this can very much be, what are some of our, what are the beliefs we hold about ourselves or the world? What do we truly think or feel about this particular topic at hand? The topic I'm bringing to my coaching session. The body can show us curious, right? The body can show us. So let's try what Carl Jung suggests here for a moment. Let's try another little experiment if you are willing and wanting. So maybe for a moment, let's see what it's like to maybe connect with how you're feeling in this moment. Just how are you feeling right now? Just taking a moment just to connect with that. And in fact, what I'd like to invite you to do is place your gesture or move. I'd like to invite you to gesture or move in a way that somehow expresses that right now. Gesture or move your body, just staying seated there as you are, that sort of expresses how you're feeling right now, taking on the shape. Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to go off camera for this if you feel more comfortable. But yeah. And it could be that you move your hands in a particular way, some sort of movement or shape that seems to kind of express that. Okay, if you're doing that already, okay, great. Okay, I'd like to invite you just to stay there for a moment, actually, if you will, and just take a moment just to get curious. You could do something, some version sitting down, whatever feels exactly. Yeah, go for it. So whatever feels comfortable for you, and just stay with it for a moment, and then get curious about that. What else do you learn about yourself in this moment? What self-awareness arises for you as you just connect with yourself in that way? Here's the movement, or the posture, or the gesture, the shape that expresses where I'm at right now in this moment in time, how I'm feeling. And do you glean any insights connecting now with that, with the body, just like Carl Jung suggested? Almost like looking to the hands or the posture and saying, what's this show me? In just a couple of moments, whenever you're ready, I'd like to, in your own time, invite you back to join the group. And you can take your time with that. If you're still experimenting with that, feel free to continue. And I'd love to maybe just take a couple of shares here. Yeah, what did you notice, if anything, as you kind of took on some shape? Only sharing what you feel comfortable sharing with the group here. But yeah, what did you notice, if anything, doing that little experiment?
For me, I felt like it was my body just naturally wanting to shift into a different state. So it was almost like this nervous energy, but it's almost like, how do I explain it? Yeah, like a nervous energy wanting to shift into a more positive energy, like to make a movement forward.
Great. So you're aware, you're noticing there as you connect with your body. It sounds like, Kata, like a wanting to shift energy, a wanting to, and a movement forward, like almost like these are my words, not yours, Kata, but like almost like an impulse, connecting with an impulse to move towards from where you are right now and towards something new. And that's and connected. Yeah, cool. Okay, great. Anyone else? Oh yeah, Gary says balance, transitioning and seeking a more dynamic equilibrium. Wonderful. Wow, so that's so rich. Wonderful insight there. Just connecting in that way. Just very simple moment of just connecting and seeing, what does that tell me about where I am right now? And what's curious about this is, isn't it the case, at least with what I'm hearing? See, when I read what you're saying, Gary, transitioning and seeking and Kata kind of moving towards, there's almost like a sense of an emerging future in a way. Like the body almost implies next steps. To use Eugene Genlin's language, there's a kind of a carrying forward that arises from our conscious awareness of what's happening in the body-mind. Similarly, Raquel says, my body was asking to slow down and actually rest. Then Gary says, on the edge of newness. So something that it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that, and Joe, there was an open, wide, curious and feeling playful. So just a kind of connecting with that. Wonderful, beautiful. And many of you have kind of connected with something that's really important for where we're going next, which is that simply bringing awareness to the body in this way often offers us a sense of what wants to emerge. That language, what wants to emerge, is what we will say all the time at the Somatic School, Embodying Coaching. It's core to the method. What's wanting to emerge. And you could think about this in a number of different ways, more than we've got time to get into now. You could think about it philosophically, you could think about it theologically. One way, just from the perspective of science for now, is that complex living systems, of which human organisms are self-organizing. Self-organization happens through the interaction, the feedback that happens internal to the system itself. So as we connect with what's happening within our embodied mind, there's more than we can get into now about what supports self-organization, but that's the whole role of body oriented coaches now. But as we connect with our body minds in this way, it creates an opening for self-organization to commence or unfold, you could say. So that's what we're working with here. That's the name of the game of body oriented coaching. So why don't we get into this skill then and give you a go? I'd like to put you into some breakout rooms so that you can actually try this for yourselves and see, do you experience some sort of self-organization? What is embodying? This is the skill we're exploring today. Embodying allows us to explore what our clients are bringing to coaching and their experience through movement, posture, shape, and form, as we've mentioned already. You can embody practically anything: an emotion, a situation, a metaphor that comes up. I feel like I've got my back against the wall, or I feel like I'm finally standing on my own 2 feet. Wonderful embodied metaphors that could be a great opportunity to do a skill like this. An idea, a vision for oneself. I imagine myself really, I feel like this is the next chapter of my life. There's a newness, a freshness. What would it be like to embody that newness, that freshness? What shape, what movement, what gesture might come if we were to do that? And a felt sense. Now we've got, again, if you want to know more about the felt sense, there's another somatic shift series, I think, that we've done where we get into the felt sense. But more than we've got time for today. But like I said, almost anything. This is really thinking with our whole bodies, or you could say with our entire body mind. One word, body mind. That's how we like to say it here at the Somatic School. Okay, so that's embodying. So how do we do it? It's 3 simple steps for now. We're going to invite a client to embody whatever they are describing. So they've brought a topic to the session. We're going to start to coach them around this topic, start to unpack what it's all about, get a bit more context, get a bit more content. And at some point, the client may describe a situation they're in. Let's imagine it's stuck. I feel stuck. And we might ask them, if you were to give that stuckness a shape, how might you move or position yourself? That's one way you could ask. Another way could be, once they get used to the hang of this embodying skill, you might simply say, how might it be to embody that right now? Yeah. So there's a number of ways you could say it. The language, its principle. The principle is what's important here. We say here at the Somatic School, spirit over semantics. So the language you can make your own, but the important thing is we're inviting them to move, as we've just done a few times here, to express, to kind of take the shape of whatever they are talking about in that moment of time. Step 2, we're going to ask the client to report what they are noticing in this shape or as they move. So you all did that in the chat there, some of you shared. We want the client to be doing that in real time as they're in the experience. So really reporting from the experience. And one of the things that we encourage you to do really is join the client's movement by mirroring them to support disinhibition. So by mirroring the client's own movements, we actually help the client to really go fully into that rather than feeling self-conscious, almost as if they're on stage moving, almost like as if they're performing for a live audience. We don't want them to feel like that. Some of you actually may have noticed that self-consciousness in yourself. I noticed a number of you turned your cameras off. Now, if we're in a coaching session, we really want to be tracking our clients' movements. We want to be able to see them. So we don't really want clients to feel so uncomfortable that they have to turn camera off. One of the ways that we can support them to feel more comfortable is actually to join in, to get involved. Because if they can see that you're moving with them, they're going to be much more likely to go places that they wouldn't otherwise if they were feeling more uncomfortable, more self-conscious. Step 3, excuse me. Can't count today. Step 3, if relevant, we're going to invite the client to explore a contrasting or opposite embodiment. So one way we can say that is notice if there's a way your body wants to move that would feel good, better, different, something like that. Okay, so inviting. And so the reason I say if relevant, so let's take, for example, if I may, Joe, is it all right if I speak to what you put in the chat earlier about the movement? Yeah. So Joe had said something like, joy, freedom, opening. Now it's quite likely if Joe was to embody that experience, really, it's likely to offer up only good things. I would imagine there's lots of there's something we call neural integration, and in fact in 2 months time we'll be doing a somatic shift series about something we call taking in the good, and it's worth coming to that if you want to learn a bit more about why, like how do you work with client when it's all good stuff. Okay, but if, say, for example, conversely it was like a stuck experience, well, they might not feel particularly comfortable in that experience. It might feel unpleasant, stifling in some way, in which case a contrasting embodiment is going to help do what Wendy Palmer says, which is that the body learns through exaggeration and contrast. So Wendy Palmer, who created embodied leadership, she worked closely with Richard Strozzi Heckler for a while. She says that body learns through exaggeration and contrast. Now, we approach embodying in a slightly different way to the Strozzi lineage, a bit more similar to Mary Whitehouse, Janet Adler's authentic movement, or Arowana Hayashi's social presencing theater. In fact, on our group body oriented coaching certification, we for groups we do something called 4D mapping, which is a social presencing theater technique. And this is a slightly different way of working with it, but it still stands that the body learns through exaggeration and contrast. Why is that? Some of the science around that, if you want to dig deeper after this event, check out embodied cognition, neuroplasticity, and the various elements that are required for neuroplastic learning, predictive processing, or what's sometimes understood as the active inference, psychobiological learning. All of this is good places to look for why is it that the body learns through contrast. Hello, Ramona, nice to see you. So welcome. So okay, great. So you're just in time because we're just about to get into a practice then, which is so here, let me just recap the steps for embodying. So you're going to invite your client to embody whatever they are describing. Okay. Encourage the client to report on their experience. What are they noticing in that? And then mirror their embodiment to support the process and to encourage disinhibition if you can. If you feel comfortable to do it as a coach, of course, this relies on your comfort level as well. And then if relevant, invite the client to explore a contrasting or opposite embodiment. Here's a little bonus you can try. We're actually going to go into a breakout room and try this. And for those of you who are already I might put you in groups of, let's see. Yeah, you'll be one group of 3 in a pair. And for those of you who are already coaches, you might decide to coach, and so if you're not a coach already, that's fine. If you want to become a coach, of course, we've got, I can tell you a bit more about how you can do that. But yeah, here's a bonus thing you can do, which is after you've done the embodying, if you get to a place that's a resonant embodying, and of course, embodiment, only if you have enough time as well. But if you get to a place which is a resonant, sort of life-giving, nourishing, or integrative, like integrating, I should say, kind of shape for the client, it feels good, it feels generative, then you could create a somatic practice out of that, which is very simply to kind of help the client connect to that and just really recognize that particular position, and maybe talk a little bit about where they might be able to practice that again outside of the session. That could be one way. That could be an interesting way to embed the learning or fully embody the learning. So, okay, those are the steps. Everyone good on the steps for now? Oh. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I will just for a moment, I wanted to just share this with you, and also I can pop into the chat. I think that it is again. So, but in the meantime, if I can ask you, if you want to continue exploring this work, and we're going to do a little practice now, but if you are curious about training with the Somatic School, I would invite you to simply type yes into the chat now, simply for a next step, which is that a course consultant will reach out to you and explain what those next steps are. Then you are welcome to do whatever you like with that information, and book a call, have a conversation, find out if this is the right next step for you. Okay, great. Oh yeah, Joe, you're already speaking with Caro, I think you mentioned. Cool. Okay, great. Okay, let's wanting to learn more about enrolling on the accredited diploma in body oriented coaching. Okay, cool. So let's get into a little breakout. We're just going to do a short one here. It'll be only 10 minutes together. But the way it works is you're going to coach normally. So for those who aren't very familiar with coaching, the accredited diploma in embodiment coaching will take you, if you've never done any coaching before, that's great. Take you from having never coached before. If you're already an experienced coach, I promise you from halfway through the first module, perhaps the second module, it's a level playing field. So you'll be learning skills that you're likely to never have come across before. So the point here, though, is in your breakout, coach normally in the sense of opening up a topic. What are you wanting to explore today? And then invite the client to embody at some aspect of that, the description of an emotion, a metaphor that arises as they're talking about their topic, or something like that. Okay. And if appropriate, invite the client to find a contrasting embodiment. At some point, keep an eye on time. You've got 10 minutes, like I said. Keep an eye on the time, and we will, and you want to be wrapping up towards the end of 10 minutes. Trust me, 10 minutes is a very short amount of time for this. So you're just having a little flavor of this, but do not underestimate what you may get out of that 10 minutes. I imagine that you will find great value in the time that you share together if you're open-minded to that. Partner, I want to invite you to bring a 4 out of 10. If a 1 is like what you've just painted, one of the walls in your house, you're waiting for it to dry, that has no real, it's not meaningful to you, you don't care much about the paint, or I don't know, you might do. The point is, it's something very mundane 1, and 10 would be something very emotionally charged for you. We want to go for something that's a 4 for today, just to take care of each other, making sure it's something that's not too chargy, or not very chargy at all, but something that is meaningful enough that you're curious to get some insights around it. And then you're going to reflect. So if you're in a group of 3, you'll have an observer. You're only going one way for this. But yeah, the coach self-reflects on their experience. The client then shares their experience. Observer sharing what you noticed. Just going to reflect together for a couple of minutes. So you'll be 10 minutes in the breakout, coming back for a couple of minutes. 20 minutes in breakout. Excuse me. About 12, 13, 14 minutes in the breakout with 10 minutes of coaching. Time yourself. And then we'll give you about 2 to 3 minutes, depending on what time it is, just to reflect on your experience. When we close the breakout rooms, there'll be 2 minutes, a 2-minute countdown. You can wait for that to run all the way down to 0. And it'll bring you back automatically. Everyone kind of clear on what they're doing in the breakout room? Yeah, cool. Okay, lovely. So in that case, I would love to open up the breakouts for you now. Let's have a look. Like I said, 1 group of 3, 1 group of 2. And perfect. All right, enjoy. Actually, 1 second. I'm just gonna. Yeah, no, that works well. Cool, lovely. All right, great. Fab. Enjoy. We'll see you back in about 12 minutes or so. Everybody.
Very quick 10 minutes.
Yes.
Very quick.
Yes, that probably flew by, and hopefully you had a little flavor of this. It's just to give you a little flavor with the time that we've got. It's a very short amount of time together, but let's just we're at the top of the hour, but like I said, we're now into our after hours. For those who can stay, I'll tell you, for those of you actually, very briefly then, for those of you who maybe need to drop off, I'll just mention here that we've explored today the embodying skill, which is one of many skills on the accredited diploma Embodying coaching. Here's just a few of them. So you'll be learning, and these are the skills that express an underlying kind of theory of change as well, which it's kind of discussed elsewhere. If you want to learn more about the Somatic School, you can check ours out on various platforms and scan that QR code there to join with our intro events. You know what? I might just share, just for those of you who need to drop, I might just share one quick thing. I forgot to mention earlier, I have a special offer. It's a shame that we had this little tech issue and there's a few people who couldn't make it today because we've got this little special. It's our 7-year anniversary, basically. And people say things happen in 7-year cycles. So for those of you who are joining, get to kind of learn a little bit about this. I'll share this with you, and then I want to come back to you to hear a bit about your experience in the breakout room for those of you who'd like to share. Normally, we would do that straight away, but given the time, I'll just share this. So I mentioned the certificate in body into group coaching earlier. For the next 7 people that enroll on the diploma, you're actually going to be getting that included. So it's a 3-day immersive training in group facilitation or group coaching, group facilitation and coaching. You're learning somatic interventions like constellation, social presencing, and you graduate with confidence to design and lead your own group programs as well. So if you're interested in working with multiple people and in addition to one-to-one, then this could be great for you. It is a graduate program, so it's only for those who have done the diploma. There are also, you're going to be getting another thing, which is the 4 one-to-one somatic coach supervision sessions included. So that's personalized guidance from our head of training, space to process sessions, refine your interventions, deepen your presence, and reconnect with your why. So that's a very, very much professional coaching supervision, as you might imagine. So you spend about an hour together and you go through your case material, and so it's a proper supervision sessions.
Bye. Sorry,
Ramona, you're unmuted. Just to mention. So then, like I mentioned, these are graduate level trainings. They're offered as gift on top of everything else that's in the diploma. So just to flash those up, I won't go into detail there now. So if you are, I think we've already sold a few of those 7 remaining things. So there might be now 5, I guess, left, but get in touch with one of our course consultants. Like I mentioned before, I think I can share that again with you if you're interested in that. And or you can say yes in the chat, and I think you've already done that, most of you, so we can follow up with you there. Okay, cool. Great. Okay, cool. If you want to book a discovery call, I'll just put that up there, QR code for that. But I'm actually going to pull this down now because I want to hear from some of you. So pulling that down, and let's chat for a bit. How was that experience in the breakouts there? Did anyone want to share on your experience for those of you who are staying for after hours? What did you notice? What did you experience? Any thoughts, questions? That's what this time is for.
it's quite amazing how much that can be felt or understood or sensed in that amount of time. But yeah, one of the things that came to me is even camera angles, the placing of my camera, the camera of the person, to be really attuned to actually what's going on. And the other thing that came up for me is just how, I don't know, in any other form of coaching or counseling, or I come from a counseling background as well, and it's how easy it is to bypass the whole story, the narrative, and just get straight into what's actually important to a human. It's not what's actually going on, it's how we're feeling about what's going on. So yeah, that became quite apparent for me, how useful it is to just bypass the whole story, that we can get really caught up on, and bring the solution in more quickly.
Yeah, fantastic. Raquel, I hear you talking about something that's really, when you said bypass the story, that's fascinating. At the somatic school, we say we don't want to throw the baby out of the bathwater. We as much our sensing and our felt sensing capacities as we are our thinking mind and our verbal communication. And the story can become almost like a trance in counseling, coaching, and therapy alike, and we can kind of almost be hypnotized by the story itself and actually miss a lot of what's really going on for the client, or maybe is maybe this is a well-worn story, a narrative that is almost is, we spoke about this, Sam and I had a training, spoke about this just the other day, where it's almost like lifeless, in a sense. It doesn't actually have any real juice in it. It's got no energy for change. But there's actually something happening in body into coaching sessions where there's 2 conversations happening always at every moment. There's the conversation that's happening verbally, and then there's the conversation, at least 2 conversations, the conversation that's happening non-verbally between 2 body minds, these 2 organisms interacting. And then there's conversations that are happening inside the client themselves, between them and their own felt sense, for example. There's the conversation that happens in the kind of relational third. We did another somatic shift series on that, like the relational field between us. So we can kind of tune into each of these different conversations that are happening that are beyond the story itself, which is the kind of presenting narrative, but there are many different dialogues happening, and we can kind of tap into any one of those and in service of the client. So you're speaking to something really important, really central to the methodology here, which is not giving the verbal communication and that kind of verbal expression and that particular story excessive weight, because there are many other voices that we can tune into beyond the voice itself, if we know of, familiar with. Yeah, so fantastic. Thank you, Raquel. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing, everyone. And I think that brings us to the end of this event today. And it was a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Thank you so much for joining us.